We're here in Katowice, Poland, just outside the UN Global Warming Summit, the COP24, and we're with Sheila Gunn Reid, who is the Alberta Bureau Chief for the Rebel Media. Sheila, I understand the United Nations would not let you into the conference this year as a reporter. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I guess it's more of a historical problem with us at the Rebel. 3 years ago, when we first applied for accreditation to report at the Climate Change Summit in Morocco, we were initially declined because they said they don't accredit activist media. Which is ridiculous because when you're inside the press room at these events, there's all sorts of activist media groups. They just don't happen to be skeptical to the United Nations point of view. So we fought that. We actually got the Canadian government involved. They wrote some letters on our behalf. We hired lawyers. They did back off that, and they let us in. And then while I was at the Moroccan Climate Change Summit, I actually saw a Canadian delegate, and I just asked them some very brief, very polite questions on camera. That person ran away, locked themselves in a bathroom, and then complained to the United Nations that I was harassing her. So at the time, the United Nations media relations person came and talked to us. You know, we showed them, we had it all on footage. None of it was harassing or anything like that. But we finished up that summit. When we went to apply for accreditation last year in Bonn, Germany, we were declined, and they cited our behavior the year before. But we went anyways. There's just as much to see and report on outside of these events as within. And then again this year, when we went to apply for accreditation, they declined us. But this time they initially cited the fact that the Canadian government had intervened and asked the United Nations to ban us from the conference this year.
Wow, so in America we have this kind of idea that Canadians are our cousins and you guys have a similar form of government. Do you guys have free speech in Canada? How would the Canadian government do that?
Well, we have the free press protected in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but as with most Canadian rights, there are limits on that. So we like to think that we have free speech, and I'm clearly a proponent of free speech and free association and the free press, but it's pretty clear that the Canadian government doesn't agree with that, particularly now. Right now, a couple weeks ago, our government, in this big sort of lobbying moment where they said that they're bailing out Canadian media companies to the tune of $600 million because they value journalism and the free press, while in the background they're actively lobbying the United Nations to ban skeptical media outlets.
That's really amazing. And I guess under that precedent, you could have Saudi Arabia say a journalist who didn't write positively about Saudi Arabia shouldn't come to the UN summits, huh? Well,
that's exactly it. I mean, why are the governments participating in these events, deciding who gets to attend and report on the governments participating at the events? It doesn't become journalism. The people inside these events reporting on them become repeaters. They're not reporters, they're repeaters of the press releases at the events, as opposed to people who are reporting in a skeptical way. I'm not even a climate change skeptic per se. I just don't think that taxes change the weather. And for that dangerous idea, my own government had me banned from this event.
That's really crazy. And actually, just a couple weeks ago, I was in Rome. I interviewed a journalist who the UN is suing, trying to get him thrown in prison for uncovering corruption. But the UN claims that it supports free speech and free press. What do you think? Does this say something about the United Nations and their position on free speech and free press?
In Morocco, I politely cornered the media relations person who initially had tried to ban us from the event the first time. And I put that question to him. I said, doesn't banning me from this event fly in the face of the UN's so-called commitment to the free press and free association? And he really didn't have an answer for that, because the truth is they don't really believe in free association and free thought and the free press. They believe in supporting journalists who think and believe the same way they do.
Very good. And, actually, while I was in there, I found a bunch of activist journalists. I was interviewing a guy, a Sustainaclaus, and this activist...
You did? He's strange.
He's super strange. And this activist pseudo-journalist from something called De-Smog blog came up and started shouting, and the weirdest thing. But so where do people find more about the Rebel Media? How can people find you guys online?
So you can find us at therebel.media, and you'll find all of our work there, all of our reports from here. We actually have a secondary website, therebelun.com, and where you can see all of my coverage from here, as well as my colleague who's in Morocco covering the compact on migration there. He also was banned by the United Nations, citing the complaints from the Canadian delegation at the climate change conference in Morocco.
So there you have it, guys. When the UN says they value free speech and free press, what they really mean is they value free speech and free press as long as it agrees with them. Sheila, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.